Hello, everyone, and welcome to Userlytics. It's great to have you on board. Today, I'm going to show you how you can launch a study on Userlytics, how you can do the analysis of your studies in Userlytics, and of course, everything that you can find in your account. Before I go into it, I want to start with a disclaimer that some of the features that I'm showing you today in this recording might look slightly different than what I'm showing you. And the reason for that is because our product roadmap is very fast and we do improve our features a lot. And with that also comes a lot of changes in the UI. So it is possible that you see some features here that are in a different place or they look slightly different, but essentially they are the same. There could also be some features that are not available on this recording because they have not been uploaded yet, but in the time you're seeing this recording, there are already new features. But let's get started. Before I go into how you can launch a study, I want to start with a dashboard and everything you can find here. So what you can see here is 3 different boxes. So you have the team boxes, the projects, and the studies. Now, not all of you might see the team box here because this is actually a special setup only for accounts with multiple teams working on the same account. And by that, I mean teams that completely individually work and do not actually work on projects together. So for most of you, the single team version of this would work, meaning that you don't have a box here with multiple teams. But let's go into projects. What are projects? Those are actually almost like little folders where your studies are hosted. And this will allow you to organize your research efficiently. So you can go and create different projects depending on what you're gonna research and what area you're going to research. So you could have one project for just prototype testing, one project just for cart sorting, for website testing, for just templates that you have. So that allows you to organize your research efficiently. How do we create a project? You go into this top right box here, create project. You would, in my case, I would have to select a team, and then you would have to give it a name, project 1. You would have to select a color, so you can color code it. And then down here, you can select whether this project should be seen by all of the members of your team or only by a couple. And by that, you just select invite only, and you just select the users that you have in your account here that should be able to see this project. And once created, there you go, you have a new project. And that is where your studies are going to be hosted. Okay, now if we go into one of the projects, you are going to see a lot of studies, all of the studies that have been created and launched inside of this project. So you can actually filter them here per status, per name, per date, etc. You could also move them to a different project if you change your mind. You could also move them in bulk by going through the 3 dots here. But what you can do here is you can create a study, and that is what we are going to do now. So the first thing that you have to decide when you create a study is what you're going to be doing. So are you going to launch an unmoderated test or a moderated test? Both of them will give you a lot of qualitative insights. Unmoderated testing is a full recording. Users will be recorded completely alone on audio, camera, and screen. You will create a completely designed discussion guide for them. So you create a step-by-step script for them. versus the moderated testing, where you will actually be live in the session with the users. So you will have a live conversation with the participant. You can go, of course, very deep into the topics. These sessions usually take a little longer. They are a little more time consuming because you do have to schedule users in. You have to, of course, make yourself available. The users need to make themselves available to kind of coordinate the schedule. But they will give you a lot of qualitative insights. Now, unmoderated testing does have a very quick turnaround, and it is usually the most commonly used testing methodology. You do also have the option to do moderated testing here. Now let's go and set up an unmoderated test. You have to follow a couple of steps here, and it is pretty easy to set up a test. The first step would go through just the basics. What is the name of my study? What are you going to be testing? Are you going to be testing a website, an app, or a prototype? You would add the URL in here. So imagine you're testing a website, google.com. You would add the URL in here, and that means that the moment they start the test, that URL will pop up and open up. Now, if you don't want that to happen, if you want to start with couple of discovery questions, or you want to give them some more instructions before they get to your website, then you can remove the URL from here and add it to one of the tasks. We will do that in a second. Here, you would decide the session times. Now, if you are on the enterprise plan, this is very important because the time does influence the credits that the session is going to take. Now, 30 minutes is usually the recommended time for an unmoderated test, so I usually recommend keeping it that way. Now, important to mention here, if you set up the session at 30 minutes, they will get cut off at 30 minutes. They will, of course, get a warning and they will know that the session will take 30 minutes, but it is important for you to design the test script the way they have enough time to do everything in 30 minutes. Now, if you are unsure about that, you can also set it up for 45 or 60 minutes. Here you can decide the study language, and this means that you can change the participant's interface into a specific language. And that means that they will see all the Userlytics instruction in that language, meaning the onboarding instructions and everything. This will not translate your interface, so this will not translate your website. This will also not translate the script. And very important, this will actually not determine that they need to be fluent in that language. In other words, if you design or if you launch a test in Germany, I would always recommend making sure that they are fluent in German, even though you set up the language here as German, because this only means that the Userlytics interface will be translated for them. Okay, let's put it back into English and go to the next step. Here we can see the participants' configuration, everything that has to do with participants. So, what device should they use? A desktop, a smartphone, or a tablet? Now, important to mention, if you want to do both, you can. We'll get to that in a second. But first, you need to set up one study for one device. Recording methodology. Do you want to record them on webcam or not? Source of the participants. This means that you can select between the Userlytics panel or bringing your own participants. The Userlytics panel is around 2 million participants strong, so you have a pretty large panel around the entire world. We have participants pretty much in all of the countries in this world. In fact, you can kind of select in this drop down which country you want to select, and you can see that it's pretty much all of them. Of course, we do have our stronger markets and not so strong markets. Our main markets are the English-speaking markets like US, UK, Canada, Australia. And in Europe, we have our main markets that are Germany, France, Italy. But you can select any of them, and you can always try to find all of the participants through our panel. Down here, you have a couple of demographic filters. So first you can decide the number of participants. So let's imagine you want to launch a study with 5 participants. And then here you would select country, gender, age, and you have a couple of advanced filters. Now, I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't go too deep in these advanced filters because these do limit the audience a lot. And instead of using all of these filters, I would recommend to create a very sophisticated screener here instead. Now, again, if you want to kind of create a test with specific quotas on gender, age, or something like that, I will show you in a second how you can do that. But first, we always need to set up a study for one specific profile. The next step is the screener. So I briefly mentioned it before. Screeners allow you to filter out any consumer behavior, whether they need to use a specific brand, or they need to drive a specific car, or they need to be working in a certain area. So that way you have an option to create a little questionnaire that they have to answer before they start your test. And if they get disqualified here, they are not able to start your test in the first place. We will not charge for those who do not fill out this or who do not pass through the screeners. We will only charge for users who complete your test successfully and have been approved by our quality approval check. Now, how do you add screeners? You have the different question types here. Just drag and drop the questions like that. Very easy. Now, here's where you would ask the question, what brands do you use? And then down here, you would have answering options. You can, of course, add some, delete some. And if somebody answers wrong, you would just be able to reject them here. Another question type that you have is the multiple choice question. Now, multiple choice will allow you to create a question where they can select multiple answers. And this is very nice to ask, for instance, for brands. Well, imagine they need to use a specific brand, but it doesn't exclude other brands that they might use as well. So for here, you can give them options like in a range, and they have the option to select several. Important to mention here, in a multiple choice question, you have 3 different options. One of them is must select. Must select means that even if they choose all of the others, they have to select this one. Otherwise, they will not get qualified. May select means that they can select this, but they have to select a must select. And reject means that if they choose this answer, they will get rejected. Important to mention here, reject is always stronger than must select or may select. In other words, if they select one option that is a must select, but they also select the reject, they will get rejected. So I would recommend you to be a little conservative with the rejects and instead maybe consider adding a may select. Okay. You also have popular question options here for screener questions. So you can select, if some of them are relevant, you can just add them like this to your screener. Another option that you have in the screeners is you can actually copy a screener from one test to the other. So if you have created like a persona here and you want to use the same screener questions for a different test, you can just duplicate it here. The next step is the most important step in a test creation phase, and that is the script. So here's where you add all of the activities for the users to follow. They will follow them in like one after the other. So they will start with activity 1. When they finish that, they click next. It will bring them to activity 2, etc., etc. Here on the left, you have all of the different question types that you can add. And you can see that there's a lot of different question types. There are some that are a little more qualitative than others that might have a little more quantitative input. Now let's go through them. What is a scenario or instruction? Well, scenario is where they have to put themselves in a situation. Imagine your mother's birthday is coming up and you're looking for a birthday present. That's a scenario. You have to put yourself in this situation. An instruction is, please do this, please do that. You give them very clear instructions here. What is the redirect URL? This is what I mentioned in the beginning, where you could remove the URL here and instead put it in some of the activities. So maybe we want to add it in activity 3. So we want to give them some instructions before we send them to our website or to a prototype. Okay. Task or verbal response. This is by far the most common used activity. A task means that they actually have to physically do something. Please go to the help section and imagine that you're looking for help. Please go back to the home page and search for something. They have to actually do something on your asset. Verbal response means, well, they have to only verbally answer. What was your experience in this? Please elaborate why you think this happened. Something like that. They have to just verbally answer. You also have the option to upload images. Now, this is very useful if you want to compare, for instance, different designs, or you just want to show them a screenshot of a prototype, or really any static image that you want to show them. You can just drag and drop here. Success failure questions. Now, these are very useful after a task, because after they actually do something, you can control whether they were able to complete it, yes or no. You also have branching logic here, so you can skip them or kind of send them through different paths depending on what they answer. So if they answer that they weren't able to complete it, you can maybe send them and ask them to a different path to try again. Single ease question. Single ease means whether it was easy or difficult for them to do. Okay, so we asked them to go and find the help section, but how easy was it for them to actually find it? Would they have expected for it to be easier? Now again, you can redirect URLs here. You can also disable the screen recording. Now this is only if you think personal information might get leaked, or in this moment, the screen should not be recorded, just for privacy reasons. Okay, now single or multiple choice, rating questions. Rating, well, here you can just ask them to rate, and I actually do recommend you to add a lot of rating questions within your script, because even if you have one goal that is really just to go figure out whether they would be able to find the help section, adding a lot of rating question is gonna, first of all, it's gonna create diversity within your script. Users are not gonna get bored, and also it takes them just a couple of seconds to answer this, and it is later gonna create a pie chart that you're gonna be able to add to your report. Write-in responses. They have to actually type in their answer. NPS, SUS, these are usability scores. They are very industry recognized usability scores. If you add those, I would recommend you to add them towards the end of the test to make sure that they have already seen it, that they have already used it, and the NPS would allow or kind of evaluate whether they would recommend your site to a friend or a colleague. So if we add this, they would have to kind of score it. You also have branching logic here, where you can kind of send them through different paths. If they wouldn't recommend it, you can ask them why. If they would recommend them, you can ask them what they liked, etc. The SUS is also a score, and here they have to answer 10 kind of affirmations, and they have to agree with them or disagree with them on a scale of 1 to 5. Now later on, this will shoot out a score, and the score should not be beyond 68. If it is beyond 68, it is considered a kind of poor usability in general of your asset. Now, card sorting and tree testing both allow you to evaluate the organizational architecture of your website. Card sorting allows them to you will present some cards to them. So you would have to create cards that are, well, your products. And you can add, for example, pants and t-shirts. Now, categories. Here you would add as many categories as you like. So you can women's wear, shirts, and so on. And what they have to do is they have to drag the cards into the right category. And that way you can make sure that they understand your organizational architecture. They do understand your menu, and they would be able to find the products. Now, the next one is tree testing, and the goal of tree testing is the same. However, it is almost the other way around, where you actually create completely collapsed menu for them. You make sure, or you kind of add categories with subcategories and subcategories and so on. And they have to find one particular product. So they just have to open up the collapsed menu and then decide where they would look for one specific product. Okay. Now, Matrix is a very interesting feature and pretty new to Userlytics. Matrix is like a rating in a matrix chart. So this is a good example here where you would probably ask them something like, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with each of the following? And then you would kind of decide, okay, price, the product that is offered, the experience, and then they would have to rate it. The metrics of this are very interesting because they will give you percentages and of course, the preference of all the users and everything. Okay. Now, once we created the script, you would do the preview. And this is, if I almost would like to say that this is the most important step of the test builder, because you do want to make sure that the script and everything makes sense and that everything's set up correctly before you launch, because once you launched, it is launched. Once you launched, we would automatically send invitations to the users, so you cannot actually change them. I would recommend to go through the realistic preview at least once. The realistic preview actually walks you through the entire process like the participants would see it. In other words, if you, for instance, set up a test on mobile, it is going to ask you to take out your phone, go to the Userlytics app, and do the entire test on mobile. And once you've done the preview, you can confirm the step and go through the overview. The overview is just kind of a recap of everything that you configured, and then you would launch the test. Okay, now that we've launched the test, we would proceed to waiting for the results to come in. Now, if you recruit from the panel, the invitations will automatically be sent out based on the filters that you add here. And we would invite them to take your screener. If they qualify in your screener, they can take the test. Now, for broad-based profiles, usually this recruitment takes not more than 24 hours. Now, if you do have a little more of a tricky profile here, like you're looking for a specific B2B profile or something like that, in that case, we also provide a specialized recruitment service where we have a team of operations do the recruitment more manually. We have additional resources that we can use in that case. We would be able to reach out to external vendors. We can increase the incentives. We would just more manually send the invitations and all of that. If you are interested in a specialized recruitment, please reach out to support. Now, imagine you do want to bring your own participants. You have a situation where you work with an external agency, or you want to just recruit from your own database of clients, or you want to test with internal stakeholders. In that case, you will be able to create an invitation page down here with your logo and your colors. You will also have the option to send them or redirect them to a thank you page after the test, or you can create your own personalized page to notify them that no more slots are available. And in that case, you will receive a URL once you launch the test, and that URL can be sent via email to your participants. I also want to show you quickly the differences between the setup of an unmoderated test and a moderated test. Now, the most important one is the new step here that you're going to see, which is the schedule. But before we go there, I want to show you how you can set up, or the first step, which also has an important part here, and that is the session time. For moderated testing, we consider that 60 minutes is usually the recommended time. Therefore, we do actually, for panel recruitment, we don't price 60-minute sessions any different to 30-minute sessions. Therefore, it is already predetermined or preset at 60 minutes here. Now on to the next step, which is the schedule. The schedule is a very important part of a moderated test because, of course, you do need to coordinate with the participant the availability, and therefore you have the option to create slots, and you can create as many as you like. And I actually recommend to open the more the merrier. In other words, if you launch a study with 5 participants, I recommend you to set up many slots, much more than 5, because users will just have more options to book a time with you. So you can open here as many as you like, and even sync your external calendar. So if you work with Google Calendar or Microsoft Calendar, you can integrate that, and therefore you're going to see your meetings that are already scheduled, and if a slot is booked by one of the participants, it will automatically be added to your external calendars as well. A couple of important things here. When you open a slot, you can invite observers. These will be completely anonymously watching the session. They will be part of the session, but the participant will not see that. So you can just invite them here with a name and an email, and then they will receive notifications. Very important, when a slot is booked, we will send email notifications to make sure that you know, and we will also send reminders to everyone involved. So to the participant, to the moderator, to the observers, and remind them that there is a session that is taking place. Now you can cancel a booked slot, but only with 4 hours or with more than 4 hours in advance. If for some reason a slot has to be canceled with less than 4 hours in advance, that's fine, but we will charge the credits involved in that session because we do need to incentivize the user that has booked the slot. Not so when you bring your own users, but if you recruit from our panel. Okay, and that's it. That's the main difference on setting up a test on moderated versus unmoderated. Once you launch the test, we wait for the recruitment, and then we would proceed with the analysis. Now we can go ahead and do the analysis of the test. So imagine we have waited for results to come in. This is an unmoderated example of a launched test that already has all of the results in. So here, if we go to the sessions, you're going to see all of the results, so all of the recordings. So the first thing that you are probably going to be doing is clicking on the recording and watching the recording. In an unmoderated test, all of the results will be reviewed by our quality approval check, and if something is off, we will reject them and replace them for you at free cost. You can also ask for a replacement by rating the participants here. Now, I recommend you to rate the participants at all times. So if it's a good result, rate them with a 5-star. If it's a bad result, rate them with less stars. The most important stars are the 1 and the 2 stars because they will kind of send us a message that you're looking for a replacement. So if I do this now, you're going to see kind of a some questions, and you can add some comments and kind of almost reject the participant and ask for a replacement. When can we reject a result? We can reject a result as long as it's less than 7 days old, and if it's on the participant's end. Now, what do I mean by that? It has to be the participant's fault. Maybe because they are, instead of doing the test, they are going up and going for a cup of coffee, or they just click next and don't speak a word, or they're having major technical problems, something like that. Now, if the fault is on your end, then we can always delete the test result, but we cannot replace them at free cost. For example, if you add the wrong URL into the test, or if they misinterpret a question and they try to answer it, but they just misunderstood, something like that. In that case, we cannot replace the result because the user has done the test in a good faith, and we have to incentivize them. Also, up here, you're going to see the participants' information. So you're going to see a couple of demographics, you're going to see the screener answers, and of course, everything can be downloaded as well. Here on the right side, you're going to have a couple of analysis features. Now let's go through them step by step. The first one are all of the activities. All of the activities are time-stamped and hyperlinked, so you can click on one of the activities and it will bring them to the moment where they were completing that activity. Then you have the annotations, so you can kind of create notes. You can annotate not just via text, but also via time-stamped recording. So imagine there is a search problem here. So we can set a starting point and an ending point, and it'll create a little snippet of this recording. Very important here are the tags. So if you add a tag to an annotation and save it, if you go to the annotation section, you will be able to filter your annotations per tag, per activity, per participant. So here you're going to have a full dedicated annotations section. So if you wait for this to load, here we go. So here we have all of the annotations with all of the tags. So you can search by tag, participants, activities, and of course, again, download everything. But this is not the only function of the tag. Another function that the tag has is it can create highlight reels. And that is honestly one of my favorite analysis features. If you go back to the project, you're going to see on the sidebar a feature called highlight reel. So if you go there, you're going to see the option to create back-to-back videos of different participants around the same problem. So what the system does is it compilates, for instance, all of the annotations with the same tag. It could also compilate all of the participants that go through the same activity. So to give you an example, here we have one participant that has a particular problem. If we continue watching here, we are gonna see another participant, but with the exact same problem, and more participants. So this is a really nice way to illustrate the problem that you're trying to kind of put into the analysis of your study. So it's a nice way to kind of add this to your report, and stakeholders love this. Okay, now that's on annotations, highlight reels, the tags. Next, you have the transcriptions. The entire session will be transcribed. We work with AWS, with Amazon Alexa for the transcriptions. All of the words are clickable. So if we click on a word, it will bring them to the moment where they were saying that word. You can also search for words, which will highlight them. You can download the transcripts. The transcripts are also a trigger of some other AI-based features that we have here at Userlytics. One of them is sentiment analysis. Now, sentiment analysis detects the positive, the neutral, and the negative sentiments of what users are saying. And this is an AI-based feature. So you can actually feed this feature by saying, okay, so imagine this has been marked as neutral, but instead of neutral, this is actually negative. So you can correct this and just say, okay, this is positive or negative instead. And then the system will learn from this in the future. Down here, you can also see kind of the incidence rate of the sentiments. So we can see, oh, okay, on the minute 10, there is a lot of negative things said. So we can skip there and see what happened here. Okay. We also have the metrics section, which is, I just made a little jump, but you would see it if you go here. The metrics section have 3 different tabs here. The first tab is all of the analytics of the test, all of the questions that you add to your report, and you're going to have the quantitative data of all of this. So you're going to have all of the pie charts, all of the scoring. So for instance, this is a task, and after a task, they added a success failure rate. You can see the participants that answered this. You can see the time on task that they spend on the task, the time on task. You can see the single ease question. So if it was easy or difficult, in this case, the participants found this very easy. This is a write-in response, so they have to actually type in their answer. This is a rating question. So you can download all of this to an Excel. You can also just screenshot this and add this to your report, or you can just share all your project results in your own kind of landing page. I'll show you in a second how to do that. Okay, now this is the first tab here. The second tab is the sentiment analysis. So here again, you're gonna have all of the percentages of the sentiment analysis. You can also filter this per participant to see what exactly they answered here. And last but not least, you have the AI UX analysis. Now, by the time I'm recording this is a brand new feature, and this is the first stages of this feature, and this is still in beta. The AI UX analysis will create a fully auto-generated high-level analysis of the entire test. And this is based on the transcription. We will send all of the transcriptions, of course, encrypted and everything, to a language-based AI model, and it'll come back with a fully auto-generated analysis. So you will see things like, for example, there was a lack of clear information on insurance coverage and costs. That has been one of the kind of conclusions of the test. This is hopefully going to be a huge time saver, and it is also revolutionizing the entire UX industry. And we will have a lot of new updates on this feature very soon. Okay. Now that's on the analysis. There's also features that I showed you in the test setup, like let me just go here, like the card sorting and the tree testing. And that, of course, also gives you some very specific metrics. So for example, this is how the card sorting metrics would look like, where you can see 3 different reports. You can see a card report, you can see a category report that you can also see as a table, and you can see some more recommendations that our system will give you. So if some of the cards didn't have a real home, it'll give you a warning, for instance. Tree testing will also give you some interesting reports. It'll give you the option that they selected versus the first click. So you will also see the first click, which is not always the same as the option that they go for in the end. You will also see rebounds rates, and then here you can see more information where you can see also the success rate, because in a card sort you can actually determine whether one of the options would be the right one. You can see the average time spent and more. Okay, now before I showed you or explained that if you want to test on multiple devices or you want to test on specific quotas, you would have to do something specific. So I mentioned that you have to create one test for one audience. And what you do is you go back to the project. Now you will see the study that you just launched, or the draft that you just created. And what you do is you copy the entire test and clone. If you click on clone study, it will copy the entire test and it will kind of create a new draft. And that way you can create one test on mobile, one test on desktop, one test for one age group, one test for another age group. So basically you create several tests at once and launch them all at the same time or subsequently. And we will later be able to merge the test results for you together. Now, in order to merge, there's only one condition. The condition is that the test activities need to be identical from one test and another. That means that you cannot change anything in the activities. You can change the screeners, you can change the filters, you can change the devices, but not the activities. That's the only requirement. And if you want us to merge something for you, just reach out to the support. Okay, awesome. I also explained that you can share all your project results. So if we go here, what you can do is you can create your own kind of white labeled landing page with your logos and your colors, and you just share this URL. They don't need to have a Userlytics account to open this URL. And that means that if you share this link with whoever you want, they will just see all the test results, sessions, metrics, and annotations. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's how you can launch a test. That's how you can do the analysis. And I also quickly want to go back to the dashboard, and I want to quickly show you a couple of things that you can still see on your dashboard in your account. So if we go to the drop down here, you're going to have a couple of things here. If you have the right permission level, in other words, if you are an admin of the account, you will see the company settings. Now here in the company settings, you will be able to add the members of your account. So if we go to the members section here, you will be able to add a member just by typing in the email. And then if you are on the multiple team, you will have to select what team they belong into. But for most of you, you will not see this. You will only need to add the email address here, and you would have to decide whether they are an admin of this account or not. So if they are an admin, then you can just kind of invite them as an admin, and if not, then they would have to be either a creator or a viewer in one of the teams. Now, what's the difference between a creator and a viewer? A creator means that they can launch studies, they can work on the drafts, they can do analysis and everything. A viewer does not have the option to actually launch studies. So they can only log into the account to see what's going on. They can go into the studies, they can watch the recordings, but they cannot actually launch or work on drafts. Okay, that's how you add members. Now, if you are on the multi-team, you also have a team option here where you can create teams. And then last, you have here the credit section. So here's where you have the overview of all of your available credits, panel credits and BYU credits. Now, in case you're not aware, the difference between panel credits and BYU credits is that panel credits are used for the Userlytics panel recruitment, also for anything such as professional services, specialized recruitments, or special test setups like diary studies, focus groups, or anything special that you want to do. BYU credits are only and exclusively used for external recruitment. They don't actually have a monetary value, so they are added as a courtesy of Userlytics, just in case you want to recruit anything external from the Userlytics panel. Okay. Now, a second ago, I mentioned professional services. What is professional services? We do have a team of UX researchers that you can kind of use for your studies. So you have a team of professional researchers that could do a full end-to-end service. They can do the entire script for you. They can moderate sessions for you. They can do reports for you, or they could just do bits and pieces. So maybe just do the script or just moderate. That's also an option. Now, our professional services team is available in different languages. So we have a coverage of many, many languages like Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, French, Chinese, Cantonese, like Chinese is Cantonese, Mandarin, I think even Russian. So if you are interested in the professional services team, please reach out to support. Okay. And in a nutshell, that's how you use the Userlytics tool. Also, I mean, you probably already received a lot of information, a lot of input, a lot of ways to find out where you can search for help and everything. But what I definitely recommend you is to search in our help section. So that is help.userlytics.com. And you just go to I'm a client, because you are. And if you go to the client section, you will have a lot of help information, tutorials, step-by-step guides with screenshots and everything. So imagine, okay, I'm interested in a cart sorting. You just search for cart sorting here, and you're going to have a full step-by-step guide on how you set up a cart sorting with screenshots, how to analyze the cart sorting in detail and everything. So that's just one example. So if you have any questions or when in doubt, definitely search out this help section because it is going to help you a lot. And that is all from me today. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our support team.
Analytics tells you what? Userlytics tells you why.